Hello friends! Today we're gonna get into another tier list, and this one has been a decently high-ish requested one. Not the most popular one I can see in my comment section, but it's a tier list for the Miniboss modifiers. For those of you who don't know, Minibosses are in the game, and they have different modifiers. I don't like that. I'm gonna scroll away from there. Can I just get this off my screen? I did make a video actually on Miniboss modifiers where I covered all of the different modifier options there are and how you can defeat them. So I'm going to link that video down below, but I figured it would be fun to rank them. Now, the way that we're going to be doing it today is based on, oh shoot, you need that, difficulty. So what we're going to be doing is S tier is the hardest to deal with, and then F is the easy stuff, you know, easy peasy. So I'm going to get right into it. Acid pools, I'm actually putting straight in S tier. That might surprise you, but when you're standing there taking damage constantly from the acid pools, damaging a mini-boss, it is a big deal. And for that same purpose, never mind. I was going to say Ricochet could be S tier, but it's tricky, because if you use a melee or an ability, you can get past the Ricochet, but if you're not running a melee loadout or a good ability loadout, you're not going to be doing nearly as much. So I'm still going to put that in A tier, since Ricochet is similar to acid pools. Like you're damaging yourself from your own damage output, but it's you know, it's tricky, but it's manageable. Berserker is one that I kind of never noticed. An angrier, more mobile mini boss is annoying, but it's not unkillable. Yeah, they break your builds more often, and it kind of sucks, but I'm still going to put that in B tier. It's not really that serious of a deal. It's kind of whatever. Building blocker, oh man, it's such a passive build because it doesn't do any damage to you, but it stops you from replacing broken builds on your base. Or if it's trap vulnerable, we'll talk about that later. Thank you for subscribing, Kayet. I have alerts on when I stream. Link down below if you guys want to be a part of the fun. Building blocker, I'm still gonna put that in A tier because it is definitely a nuisance, but it doesn't really make the mini boss harder to kill usually. That's where there's an edge case. Like building blocker plus trap vulnerable is like S+. That is sometimes impossible to kill depending on what's going on. Most of the mini bosses that have escaped my grasp have been from that combination. For those of you who don't know, building blocker stops traps from firing and stops you from putting walls around the mini boss, where broadsides are the easiest. Like trap vulnerable, I'm going to put it in F tier just because it's ridiculously easy to deal with. 4 broadsides and it's dead. Even with 250 power level, it's dead. Maybe D tier if they're not dead instantly. But with building blocker, it becomes tricky. Not impossible. You know, you walk them under ceiling electric field, gas, you know, you get the wall darts from range. It can be dealt with, but it's still a very, very deadly combo. Corrosive. I don't even know what that means. And that's why I'm glad that I pulled up this video, because there is a Reddit post that goes through all of the different things. What even is corrosive? Let's see. Affliction damage on walls. Yeah, if I didn't even know, I'm putting that F here. It's not something that really impacts the game, and it's not really something that I'm scared of. So I'm putting it down there. Damage pulse, same as acid pools. In fact, kind of an S+ tier. And I know I never discussed that in my videos. It's either S tier is the worst or A tier. But what I mean is it's the worst as is. Damage pulse, doing damage to you and all your teammates and walls is bad. But for a long time, there was a glitch where it damaged the objective, which is way more broken than it sounds. We lost missions from a mini boss that we could not kill fast enough because it's a mini boss and can have other modifiers like building blocker or tank. If you had a tank damage pulse, you might lose the game. That's not relevant anymore. I'm pretty sure it's patched in our current version of the game. Might come back in the future. I hope not. But hurting you, your teammates, and your walls is bad. So it's a really, really dangerous one to deal with. Water, fire, nature, I'm actually going to put this in F tier because it's very easy to deal with. Once you see the modifier, you know what? No, that's not fair. Once you see the modifier, it's actually easier to deal with. And I said, you know what, as in like, maybe I'll put this up to B tier because if you're playing in public lobbies, sometimes, in fact, probably more often than we'd like to think about, you'll get that knucklehead teammate who doesn't look at the modifier and is shooting a water weapon at a nature mini-boss wondering why he's doing no damage. That's almost as bad as a teammate shooting at a... I'm sorry, Walry, but it's true. That's almost like a teammate shooting at a trap vulnerable mini-boss in any context. Shooting, swinging... Traps are the only thing that will do any meaningful amount of damage. Anything else, you're wasting your durability. or your ammo. So I'm gonna put this in F tier because it actually tells you, hey, if this is a fire mini boss and you use water weapons, you'll be doing 100% of your damage, and you could just bank on that. If it's a physical mini boss, that's nice. That's even easier to deal with because everything does the most amount of damage it can. But yeah, I think that's easy to deal with. Frenzied, pretty much the same as Berserk. Berserker, more damage, moves faster. Frenzied, let me see if I can find it here on the list. I don't actually see it on the list. Maybe that's a newer one. I think they're pretty similar. It's basically the same thing in my understanding. Healer, I'm gonna put that in B tier because it's tough. Having a mini boss heal itself is not great. But if you are appropriately leveled and you got decent weapons like the Huskbuster, any kind of launcher spam is good. You know, you got the right stuff going. It's not that bad. And by Huskbuster, I mean like ground pounder. Any good shotgun is going to deal with it. The Nocturno, the Scourge, the Thrasher, all your good weapons for killing mini bosses. That would be a good video, by the way. I know people have asked for it, but I feel like you can just go to my top 10 videos and that, like my top 10 weapons, and that kind of handles that. I digress. My point is, if you're killing the mini boss as a team at your level with decent weapons, it healing itself isn't really that bad. And same thing kind of for tank. I'm definitely putting that in A tier. Tank makes a mini boss have more health. It's pretty straightforward, and that is a problem. I mentioned most of the mini bosses that have evaded me have been like that trap vulnerable building blocker combo. A tank mini boss is one of the others, where sometimes either the weapon you're using isn't strong enough or the teammates aren't able to focus. Like sometimes, usually people join in from the stream and you guys kind of know what to do, but a lot of times a mission isn't trapped 100% perfectly and they're busy not losing the game while maybe one or two teammates is on the mini boss, and sometimes that is insufficient to actually kill the thing. So I would put that in A tier. It's not S tier. S tier is like crazy annoying, but it's manageable. It's manageable. It's funny that like the two situations where I've actually lost a mini boss aren't in S tier, but these are just always bad. Tank is manageable. Shield breaker. I don't even know what this is. Does it break your shield faster? Is that what that means? This is an old Reddit post. Not really. I'll put that in D tier. It's not something I ever really notice or care about. You expect to take damage from a mini boss, so a couple of campfires is pretty standard. Coconuts are pretty standard. It just happens. Slowing pools. Honestly, I'll put that in D tier. Maybe even F tier. I think slowing pools is always bad, so I'll keep it in D tier. But moving slower isn't a big deal when you're trying to stay on the mini boss anyway, and mini bosses aren't typically fast, so it can just kind of be whatever. Smoke screen. It's tricky. I'm gonna put this one in a perfect C tier because it is S tier difficulty if you're not using a melee or an ability. For those of you who don't know, smokescreen reduces your damage based on ranged weapon damage, I should say. So any pot shot or scourge or all of the weapons that are ranged will do basically nothing. It's like 25% of its damage or maybe more. I don't know the exact figures, but it's low. It's low. You want to use a melee or an ability. So it's C tier because it's F tier if you just pull out a damn Ravager or an ability. But again, if you're not running a melee loadout and you're not running an ability loadout, it might still not do that much damage. And plenty of times I've been caught using a soldier build and a smokescreen mini boss comes around. So I pull out my physical Ravager. Pro tip, smokescreen mini bosses are always physical. So I actually keep, I'll show you, I keep a second copy. It's not my current schematic. My current schematic, as you can see, is energy. But I actually keep a physical Ravager on hand strictly for smokescreen. And you'll notice it's a crit build, not the typical triple attack speed, because triple attack speed gets all its damage from Luna. And if I'm using this in a build that is not using Luna, we're back to crit builds. If you guys remember from my Ravager video, I mentioned that triple attack speed is only optimal for Luna. You want the crit build normally. So yeah, a little pro tip to deal with smokescreen mini bosses. They are very easy if you know what you're doing, but I'm gonna put it C tier because sometimes it's not so obvious. Vampiric just steals health from you, or your builds. It's about as bad as healer. I'll put it there. Any situation where the mini boss can heal itself is bad. And wall weakening, I'll just put it F because you expect your walls to break just anyway because a mini boss is here. Walls are going down, so making them weaker doesn't really doesn't really make a difference. So there you go. There's a mini boss tier list. I know that not every single modifier that has ever been in existence is here, but I appreciate Archer for setting this up. He did a good job. And yeah, comment down below what you guys think, what you guys might want to see in the future. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.